So we're going to go ahead and get started. Thanks everyone for coming out and joining us at the Ethelbert B. Crawford Public Library tonight. It's certainly a nice evening out tonight compared to what it's been, so we certainly appreciate y'all joining us. I really want to thank Mr. Pedro Tweed for coming out and joining us. I really look forward to hearing what he has to say about emotions. So we'll go ahead and welcome you, and we look forward to hearing your presentation. And then at the end, we'll have time for some Q&A with the audience here. So with that, I'll turn it over to you, sir. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. First of all, I want to say thanks for inviting me to talk at the library. It was always a dream of mine to do that, and now here I am. I can't believe it. You know, things that are happening with me, things that I imagined before, and now here I am living out that dream. You know, I wanted to speak to the library. One time I wanted to speak to the USA Gymnastics, and they invited me, and I was like, wow. And the same thing is happening here. Now, the reason why, when they invited me, the reason why I chose Handling Your Emotion, because that's part of my book. So, because I believe that emotion, the quality of your life, comes down to this: the way you handle or mishandle your emotion. A lot of the times, you know, there's two stories actually that change and shape the way I thought about emotion. And the two stories goes this way. One time I was coaching, and it was really hot outside, really tremendously hot. And we wanted to go to the lake. So we went to the lake, and we brought all the gymnasts with us to the lake. And they were all going around, they were talking to each other. And every time I tried to talk to them, they would just go like this, ignoring me. Now, I spend a lot of time with these kids, so I'm really close to these kids. And I noticed that my girlfriend, that was also a coach at that time, was doing the same thing. They were all ignoring me. And I started to get angry. I didn't know where the emotion was coming from, but I got really angry that they were doing that. And every time I would move towards them, they would go like this. And they started whispering. And they started whispering among each other and not letting me in. So this time I said, I got angry enough where I said, I'm going to go and confront my girlfriend and see why she's doing that. So I said to her, what are you doing? And instead of letting me in, they all made a circle, and they huddled like this in a circle. And then they came out and they, happy birthday to you, happy birthday. I started singing happy birthday, and I said, oh. And here I am thinking that what they were saying about me was bad things. That was me. There was another time when I was sitting at a restaurant, and at the time I was working out really hard, you know, looking pretty buff, you know, feeling pretty good about myself. And I went to this restaurant, and I sat there, and I was watching these young girls looking at me. So of course, I thought they were looking at me because, you know, I was pretty pumped, pretty handsome. They're looking at me, and they laughing and pointing and laughing. And I'm going, what's going on? Yeah, man, they like me, they're into me. I gotta go and check that out. So I waited a few minutes, the girl's still looking at me. So finally I got up and walked over to the table and said, hey, I noticed that you were looking at me, you know, what's up? Can I have your number? And I saw that you were, you know, reacting, and you were laughing, and you kind of digging me. He said, well, the reason why we were laughing is because you have a booger on your nose. So how could I get these two things wrong? These are things that happen. And the reason that I came up and those two stories changed and shaped the way I thought is because I was thinking wrong. And it was what I was thinking, not what actually was happening. Because emotion are a bad interpreted of reality. Emotion don't interpret reality the right way. So when I was thinking that they were talking about me, they were actually planning something good. And when I was thinking that they were saying good things about me, they were actually laughing at me because something wrong. So how could I get these two things wrong? So I started to think more about emotion and how they fool us. They're not really real. Okay? So then, as I started thinking, I started jotting down on my book, what is emotion really? Are they really real, or is this what we're thinking? Most of the time, it's what we're thinking and the way that we interpret them. So I went and finally, I got a chance to speak to USA Gymnastics Congress. It's a huge convention, hundreds of people, thousands of people. And I went there, I got my chance to speak to the audience about what I've been writing. And I got there and I stood up, very proud. Hope you could see me. And I'm talking to them, and then all of a sudden, my phone rings. This is what I call a rookie mistake of speaking. The phone rang, and what did I do? I reached for my phone, I answered. All of a sudden, I look at the audience, I say, oh, this is a bad thing, isn't it? The way they were looking at me, people came to hear me speak, not to be on the phone. So as I'm sitting on the phone, I'm standing on the phone and talking, and I look at the audience, I say, oh, I got to change their emotion now, because now they're not liking me very much. You know, how could I do that? That's rude. So I told them, listen, I apologize. I apologize because I told my daughter that's pregnant that, you know, she's going to have a baby. So I told her to call me anytime. Just call me anytime. And that was her on the phone telling me that she's about to give birth. As soon as I told them that story, the audience changed. And instead of being mad at me now, they are clapping and yelling, yes, yes, congratulations, blah, blah, blah. You know, now what happened? What I did was I told them a story to change their emotion. It wasn't real. It wasn't true. The whole thing was made up in order to show them how easy it is to manipulate your emotion. And as soon as I told them that story, now they're on my side because the whole thing was made up. Oftentimes, we made up things in our mind thinking this is what it is, but it's not. Just like I thought that those girls were digging me, that's what I thought it was, but it wasn't. Just like I thought that my girlfriend and them were talking badly about me, that's what I thought it was, but it wasn't. So what it was what I was thinking, the way I was feeling. So the way you're feeling changes the things that you're perceiving. You see what I'm saying? When you start thinking, if you got thinking in your head, that's the way you're going to see the war. You're going to see that the war is against you. And if you're thinking the other way, I don't want to sound too Pollyanna, but if you're thinking the other way, that everything is great, anytime that you take it to an extreme, it's not good. Emotion can be manipulated by simply changing the story that we tell ourselves. Emotions are not real. If they were, we wouldn't be able to make movies. Look, when we go to the movies, right? We know that it's a scripted thing. We know that it's something that was made up. We know that. But if you hear that sound or Jaws or the movie, right? Your heart starts to beat and you start to get nervous and oh, it's going to happen right now. And you start to think about all the things that are going to happen in the movie, but it's still not real. But you're feeling those emotions as if they were. You see? So just by changing the story, you begin to realize that most of the time, emotions are lying to us. Most of the time, what we're feeling is not really what's happening. So I wrote in the book, feelings are emotion are the steering wheel to our destiny. A steering wheel has no power by itself. A steering wheel sitting there in a car has no power. The only power it has is when we start the car and we start to handle the steering wheel. Just like we handle our emotion, we have more control. We are the boss of our emotion. If we don't become the boss of our emotion is going to control us and dictate how we have to respond to people. See, a lot of times people get upset because they try to allow other people to control their emotion. You know, my wife asks me all the time, and we have fun with this one, because my wife said to me, "Do I make you happy?" And I look at her and said, "No." See, what do you mean, no? No, you don't make me happy. I was happy when you met me, and I'm still happy. Now we're happy with each other because she's happy too. So when I met her, if she was miserable, we probably wouldn't have been together, because I don't want to be with a miserable person. I want to be with somebody that's happy like me. You see? So it's not somebody else making you happy. It's not someone or you making somebody happy. It's that you have that happiness and then you share that happiness together. That's an awesome responsibility to give someone to do for you, to be in charge of your emotion. Imagine that. Okay, so one of the things that I wrote in the book is that, like I said, that feelings and emotion on the steering wheel is that if you sit in a car and you're driving, right? When you're driving and you have a coat on and you say, "Hey, could you hold on to the steering wheel? I'm going to take off my coat." And then you start to take off your coat and you hand the steering wheel to the person on the passenger seat. Now, if they crash, whose fault was that? You gave your emotion for them to handle it. See, a lot of times we do that. We say, "You handle my emotion. You make me happy." I was talking to a young man yesterday, and I was trying to put this together because I had to change it for this audience. So I said to him, "Tell me about your emotion." And he said, "What emotion you can handle?" He said, "Well, fear." "Well, tell me about why you can't handle your fear." He said, "No, I could handle that." "Oh, okay." And then what else? "Well, I'm bored." I said, "That's not an emotion. It's a feeling, right?" "Yeah." "What is bored?" "Bored is simply something that you want to be entertained." So I told him, I said, "You trying to learn the piano now, right?" He said, "Yes." I said, "You trying to learn to play the guitar, right?" And he said, "Yes." I said, "Then you have no reason to be bored. If you're not singing or playing the guitar or doing something that you're learning, there's no excuse for you to be bored." You know, we choose our emotion. Believe it or not, we do that. We plan our emotion. People get up I was talking to Jonathan earlier. I was saying that people go on social media, and what do? If you look at your friend list, you will see that people write about the same thing all the time. One time, I often write about love most of the time. And somebody got mad at me because I was writing about love. Somebody said, "Well, how could you be like that?" And 90% of the time, I'm angry. And he was happy about that. He was happy that he's angry 90% of the time. I said, "How do you manage that? How do you manage being angry 90% of the time? And how do the people around you manage you being angry 90% of the time? How could you function that way?" Then I started to look and I see that some people get up and that's all they write about, what they're angry about. They never write about what they're happy about. There's some people that write what they're happy about. So that is what I call your functioning, your operating system, like a computer. Then you get up and that's your operating system. I operate from anger, so I'm always angry. And other people, I operate from love. See, any emotion taken to an extreme automatically cancels itself. We use the same thing for rain that we use for the sun. For instance, if you take an umbrella, you could protect yourself from the sun. And if you take the umbrella, you could protect yourself from the rain. Two different things. but you're using the same solution. All you have to do is decide what emotion you want to operate from. What emotion do you have that you think that you're going to make a difference in the world? To me, it's love. If you feel it, if you feel love, you could help anyone. I'm sorry, I got a little emotional there, but that's what it's about. That's you know, I have to handle my emotion right now. Okay, so circumstances. I wrote one time that don't allow a circumstance to change the way you feel, rather let the way you feel change the circumstances. Most of the time, like if you go to the mall, right? And you're trying to park, that is your objective. You want to park. You want to park your car. And you go and you can't find a parking spot. You keep looking. And then on the back, way on the back, very far on the back, there's an open spot and you're about to go there and then boom, somebody jumps in there and takes it from you. And you're mad. You're really mad because you couldn't get that parking spot, right? Then you come back 2 weeks later and there's no parking spot at all open, none at all. And you see the same parking spot, and it's open and you get in there and now you're happy about it. It's the same parking spot. It wasn't close to the mall. It was the same parking spot, but the circumstances are different now. If you couldn't find anything, but then you find that same parking spot, now it has a different meaning. So you adjust yourself to whatever you want to feel. Why don't you go to the mall and say, I just want a parking spot. It doesn't matter whether it's close or far. I just want to get that going. So you change the way you feel. Skills is not usually the problem. If skills was the problem and to handle your emotion, then everybody will be Simone Biles. Everyone will be able to handle their emotion and do what Simone Biles could do. Not everybody could do that because a lot of times they cannot handle their emotion. I went to a competition and this kid had the best skill. I said, this girl is going to be my champion. She's going to win everything. She's definitely going to take this. And then she messed up big time. She was afraid. And she couldn't handle the emotion. And the reason why I'm saying that is because there were so many people in her head telling her what she should do that she became apprehensive and afraid. Her mother was telling her what to do. I was telling her what to do. My daughter was telling her what to do. Her friends were telling her what to do. Imagine all those voices in your head telling you what to do. So the way to handle your emotion is to simply sit down quietly and tell yourself what to do. You have to be the commander of your emotion. You have to be the boss. You have to control your emotion rather than, like a second ago, I got emotional because I like what I'm doing now. My goal is to help you make handling your emotion a skill. When that becomes a skill, because it's like everything else, you see, everything else that we do that we couldn't do before is something that we had to train for. Look, when I saw my wife, I thought she was the most loveliest thing in the world. I said, wow, she's beautiful. I was clowning around, sitting down next to a coach, and I said, I'm going to marry her. And I was clowning around. About a few years later, I met her, and here we are. 15 years later, we are together and married. But the thing is that when you do anything, you plan it ahead of time. You are talking to yourself, and then becomes a reality. Anything that you have done so far, you were planning in your head ahead of time. So if you start to plan and practice, make handling your emotion a skill, then it becomes a habit like anything else. Okay? If I ask you to tie your shoes right now, you could tie your shoes without looking because you've done it so many times and here becomes a skill that you could handle. The same thing with your emotion. I'm not saying that you're never going to get emotional. That is impossible. But I'm saying that when you become emotional, then you do enough exercise and you say, hey, I could manage this. I will be able to handle this and guide it like I was driving with a steering wheel. Okay, we all clear on that? I said before that number one, you are the boss of your emotion. So you have to tell your emotion what to do. If they're not in accordance to the goal that you have, then you have to fire them. Like anything else, you fire them. You say, no, you don't belong here. A lot of times thoughts come into our head without being invited. Now imagine somebody came into your house and said, I'm just here. And especially somebody you don't like. They come to your house and then they show up uninvited. What are you going to do? Well, maybe I'll offer them a plate. But if it's somebody that's unruly, I'm going to say, I'm sorry, but you don't belong here. So negative emotion, such as fear, that they show up as real, but they're not. And show you here a lot of acronyms for fear. You know, one of the ones that they say is fear is false evidence appearing real. My own is fear is false evaluation appearing real. Because we evaluate things according to our perception, but in reality, when you look at them closer, they're not real. They're not real. They're just showing up that way. Let me ask you this. If you have someone that lied to you all the time, constantly lying to you, how much trust will you put on them? No trust, right? How many times have your emotion lied to you? How many times did you believe something that you were worried about? And then when it actually happened, it wasn't as much as what you were worried. You were really worried, and then all of a sudden, oh, that was nothing. It was nothing. So when you saw those things, right? You realize your emotion were lying to you. And then they come back in another time and they start to lie to you again. And then you accept it as it's real. So what I say to you is evaluate your emotion. Look at them, why am I feeling this? And start to say, are this emotion real? Because most of the time they're not. Most of the times you are creating it in your head, saying, oh, this is what's really happening, and then it's not. I was talking to Jonathan before we started the program, and I said, you know, it's funny because when we have a belief, we defend it to death, even if the belief is not real. You know, Jim Jones took people to another island and they believed that he was the Messiah, right? And they followed him. And then he said, take this drink, and they drank it. And they die for their belief. I don't know about you, but if somebody's telling me that I had to kill myself in order to succeed, the chances of me succeeding after that, 0 to none, you know? So therefore, watch who's telling you, who's describing you, and who's telling you how you should feel. Not even me. I'm just posting this out there so you could think. I tell my Tai Chi students that I want you to think for yourself. I don't want you to accept everything I say as real. I just want you to evaluate what you're doing and what you're thinking. And then you make your own conclusion. The reason why I changed the way I think about emotion is because of the things that were happening in my life. And I was falsely, like at the beginning of the story that I told you, I was wrong both times. And I've been wrong other times. And then I said, I wonder if I'm wrong this time again. So I got to check my emotion, put your emotion in check all the time. I tell you that life has been good. Writing a book, and then I went and created this talk show, you know, Tweed Talk, because people were complaining about the pandemic. And they were saying things like, oh no, this is my weight now, and this is my weight after the pandemic. You know what? They decided that. That is the decision that they made. See, ahead of time, how do you know how you're going to be later on? Because you made a decision on it. This is the way I'm going to look like later on. Or this is the way that I'm going to. But if you take action, right, then you have better control of the change that happens in your life. Another thing, this is not in the book that I'm talking about now, but it's in an upcoming book. Change is going to happen no matter what. There's two types of change, two types. One is the desirable change, and the other one is the undesirable change. And it goes like this. If I take a bagel, and I take a bagel, and I put it on the table, and I leave it there, that bagel is going to change. The consistency is going to change. If I leave it alone without doing anything, that bagel is going to change. But if I took that bagel, and instead of leaving it on the table for days and days, and I took the bagel and started eating it, that bagel is going to change. The consistency is going to change. But the first one, the one where I didn't do anything, that's an undesirable change. The one where I started chewing, that's a desirable change. What's the difference? One, I took no action, and the other one, I took action. Okay? So if you take a different action, and if you start telling the story that you have in your mind, you start changing it to a desirable change rather than an undesirable change, then things will be better. Like I said at the top of this was that your emotion improves the quality of your life, how you handle them. So it's important how you handle them. Now I'm going to give you some action tips on how to handle your emotion. One of the things that I did is I found out when I went to my teacher, I'm a Tai Chi teacher also. I see that one of my students was on there. My teacher said, do you know that you breathe differently depending on your emotion? I said, tell me more. And if you pay attention, when you laugh, you breathe different than when you're sad. See the difference? So now when we're practicing Tai Chi, what we do is we even the breathing. So you breathe the same amount in as you breathe out. So that creates balance within your body. You see? Or balance within your emotion. If you jump in the shower and the shower is either hot or cold, right? You breathe differently. Okay? So what we try to do is to get you to breathe evenly when you're feeling exasperated, when you, and now my wife is an actress, so you have to know how to breathe in order to change, okay? What is a movie trying to do? They're trying to change and they're trying to touch your emotion one way or another, okay? So the same thing, you gotta be able to manage your emotion, no matter what's happening in your life. I used to think this is the end of the world. There's no way I could change this. I have been in situations where I say, oh no, this is it. But here I am now trying to inspire people all over the world that nothing is that insurmountable that you can't change it, that you can have a goal. If you have a goal, it changes everything. Zig Ziglar, one of my favorite speaker used to say, logic will not change an emotion, but action will. So what I will say to you is to take some action, some different action to change your emotion. And the first one is, like I said, try to breathe differently. Sit down quietly. Are those thoughts that are going into your head came from you or from somebody else? And then when you learn where they're coming from, be aware that you have the ability to change it. Everything starts with love, and everything ends with love. Teaching the kids that I have in gymnastics is not because money, but it's because I love what I do, and I love what they're doing. And if you start from a place of love, you're able to change everything. That's why we're here. Now I leave it up to you to ask me any question that you want.
Okay, so I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to allow folks to go ahead and unmute themselves if they have a question for Pedro. Otherwise, you can always type it in the chat box and we'll ask it. But if you have a question, go ahead and, you know,
Don't
you
be
can
shy.
unmute. Yeah.
Anyone? No?
Pedro,
Yes.
Go.
it's Daniel.
Daniel, how are you, Daniel?
Hey, I'm good.
My friend.
Yeah, I was having supper. That's why I didn't put my picture up.
Oh, okay. Well, Danny,
I'm glad we're online friends. I'm just glad that we're online friends. You're a positive guy, and I like the message you're putting across. You know, a lot of people do that, put the same message across, but I just like the way you do it. I like your style, and Crystal's great too. That's all I got to say.
well, Daniel, thank you. Daniel is a friend. We became friends on Facebook. He lives in Canada.
Yeah,
and he
in
started
Howick,
watching our show.
in Quebec.
Huh?
I live in Quebec.
Quebec.
Yes.
Yes. Well, thank you for that comment, Daniel. My goal has always been to, you know, like I said, when we had the pandemic, my wife and I started doing exercise tips because everybody was complaining that they were going to get heavy and they were going to get this. And I'm trying to get people out of that state of mind because if you start to think that way, you become what you think about.
Exactly.
Yeah. And so if your mind was a land, what are you planting?
Yeah.
Because whatever you're planting, that's what's going to grow.
Before I even knew what your talk was about, today I was listening to a audiobook of As a Man Thinketh.
Oh.
Okay. And then that brought me to Funkadelic's Good Thoughts, Bad Thoughts. And then I get on this meeting and that's what you're talking about, the same thing, you know, what I was into this afternoon on my own.
Uh-huh. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That, yes.
Yeah, it's funny.
Anybody?
Have a good night. Have a good night, everyone.
Oh,
I'm gonna let someone else speak.
Hi,
You know,
Pedro.
Hello?
This is Lumere. How are you?
Oh my goodness, Lumir. We got all okay. Lumir, you have a question?
You don't have a question, Pedro. I just wanted to thank you for just the I mean, everything you're saying is wonderful, but it was really a great pointer and a reminder to me that change is going to happen no matter what. And the type that takes place. I'm just repeating what you're saying, but it really did hit me. The type of change that's going to take place, whether it's desirable or undesirable, has all to do with the action, the part that we put into it.
That's right.
Change is good. The change can just happen and we, you know, can be miserable or happy with whatever that change is, or we can actively participate in the process, make choices and action. I like what you said. We can actively participate in how that change comes about and how it affects us. I like that.
Wow. Lumiri is a great entertainer. She's a singer and an actress, and she was on our show on Monday, on this past Monday. You know, so wow.
Yeah, and I like when you're talking about, you know, making the connection. I didn't hear all of it because I came on a little late, but I wanted to hear how you were linking, or if you were linking the breathing, because you talked about the acting and the breathing and how crucial that is to us controlling our emotions. But I was wondering how the breathing can affect even what you're talking about, how we go through change. You know what I mean?
Because Yeah, because on the breathing, and that's one of the things that I do, try to do with my gymnasts. And in Tai Chi, your breathing has to get balanced. In order to balance your mind, you have to have balanced breathing. You know,
Okay.
so if you breathe out, let's say you breathe in for 4 counts and you breathe out for 4 counts, then that's balanced breathing. At first, people are not able to handle, 4 in, 4 out, 4 seconds in, 4 seconds out. But you can
Right.
start with 1, as long as you make it balanced and you make it the same.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks for that question.
No problem.
Judy? I see you there.
Now,
Okay.
can you hear me now?
Yes, I could.
Oh, I'm just saying I miss our Tai Chi classes.
Oh,
My garage is not big enough to do everything, but I appreciate it and I miss it a lot. And the balance is very important. So it's I keep working at that. And the very first movement you showed me, I can't remember all of them, but as you said, even do a few, and that does help and it works well. So I'd be anxious to start it up again. And we miss it. So thank you for tonight and be well.
oh, thank you. Thank you. You come in and we'll do the Tai Chi again.
I hope so. Thank
Okay.
you.
Whether you triumph or you fail, the common denominator is how you handle your emotion. That's basically it. You know, if you have a Simone Biles, trust me that the emotions are happening, but it's how she handle it that, and start from what she wants to do. What you decide to do. I keep pressing on the wrong thing. Okay, any more questions?
Is there anyone else? There has to be someone else. No? All right. Well, if there's not any more questions, I want to thank everyone for coming out. And I certainly want to thank Mr. Pedro Tweed for coming and joining the library. I really enjoyed everything here tonight. It's certainly, important, not only now in this day and age, but it's important always to handle our emotions. Yes, sir.
I'm going to tell you something else before we go.
Okay.
And this is something that I wrote about, something that happened at the gym. Okay, so I said, here we go. We're going to do a bar routine. This is something that I wrote for the kids. And the child said, Coach, but I'm scared. And I said, why? She said, I'm afraid that I'm going to hurt myself. Something bad may really happen. So then I said to her, let me ask you something. Before your parents go to the grocery store, what did they do? The child had no response. Then I said, Coach, they make a list, right? I said, they make a list. And they say, yeah, they do. Then I continue and I said to her, and they put in that list the things that they don't want. And she said, no, Coach, they put the things that they want in that list. I said, so what happens when they go? Do they put in that list, oh, I'm going to drive to the store, but I don't know what's going to happen. I may crash, something may fall down when I'm shopping, and something bad's going to happen. They may not have the food that I want. And she said, no, they only put in there the things that they want. So then I said to her, wouldn't it be silly if they put in there the things that they don't want? The things that they don't want to cook, like if they want to make a potato soup or they go and get carrot. And she said, no, that's silly, coach. And then I said, yes, almost as silly are the negative list of things that you told me that you would worry about before you did your bar routine. I just want to tell you, I wanted to finish with that because that's exactly what we do. We start putting a list in our head of the things that we don't want, rather than making a list of the things that we want. Oh, I can't change that. Of course you can. Make a list of the things that you want, put it in your head. And this is the other thing I want you to do. Make a list of the things that you don't want, put it on a separate paper. Before you go to bed tonight, take the list that you don't want, crumple it up on paper, and as a symbolic thing, throw it in the trash. The only thing that you want on your list is the things that you need to make your meal. And the meal that you're making is how you're going to live your life from today on. Are you going to let the negative thinking be the influence in your life, or are you going to let the positive thinking be the influence in your life? With that, I say, God bless you. And I'm glad that you joined us.
Thank
If
you,
you have
sir.
any question, put it on the thing, and I answer them the best I can. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks for coming out, and thank you, Pedro, again.
Thank
We
you.
look forward to seeing you again.
Sure. When the next book comes out.
Okay, that sounds
Okay.
good.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Great.
Thank you.